This video walks through New York in the mid-18th century, when it was still a modest colonial port of fewer than 20,000 residents. It was a growing settlement shaped by trade, ferry traffic across the rivers, and the constant movement of ships along the harbor. Using contemporary artificial intelligence technology to animate historical artwork and old prints, we can adjust our viewpoint, shift angles, and explore these same locations in ways the original creators couldn't have imagined. We'll start our journey in Manhattan during 1746. As we move across the East River toward Manhattan, the environment shifts right away. This illustration from 1746 depicts the ferry dock located at the base of Wall Street. During that period, Wall Street ran straight down to the waterfront, and the ferry terminal was among the most active spots in the settlement. Residents traveled back and forth continuously between Manhattan and Brooklyn. Traders transported merchandise. Visitors arrived on horses. Seamen secured their vessels and fastened them at the dock. There's a covered waiting area visible where passengers gathered before boarding the next ferry, and beyond it stand structures that still show the earlier Dutch building style from the New Amsterdam days. This scene brings us to a chilly Brooklyn dawn in the winter of 1760. Brooklyn during this era wasn't a city center. It remained countryside and scattered, with households occupying small timber homes surrounded by cultivated land, storage buildings, and unpaved paths. When winter weather came, daily activities became even slower. In this view, we observe residents chopping firewood, collecting necessities, and conversing in little clusters. Young ones are playing beside the pathway. A draft animal waits calmly next to a wooden sledge. The dwellings are humble and constructed low to the earth, and chimney smoke rises upward as residents work to stay comfortable indoors. This section of Brooklyn still followed the patterns of farming life. Most households raised their own crops, maintained farm animals, and depended on exchange with neighboring settlements. A winter day involved keeping fires going, cooking food, and completing whatever tasks were necessary to survive the cold season. By 1763, the British had established firm authority over New York, and the town was developing into a more important colonial harbor. This perspective of Fort George, positioned at Manhattan's southern point, shows us how central the waterfront was to the settlement's commerce and defense. In the scene, we notice vessels of different dimensions entering the bay. Several are trading ships transporting cargo, while others serve the British naval forces. Fort George occupies the coastline with artillery pointed toward the open water. The British banner identifies the location unmistakably. As we travel further uptown, the settlement grows peaceful once more. This representation of Harlem from 1765 bears no resemblance to the Harlem that exists now. It consisted mainly of agricultural property and undeveloped countryside. The homes stood small and divided by extensive areas of meadow, woodland, and rolling hills. In the artwork, we notice several small boats on the river. Residents probably used these modest craft for fishing or short-distance travel. The forest growth behind the homesteads looks dense and pristine. The whole region feels tranquil and unhurried. When you consider Manhattan in present times, it becomes difficult to visualize that significant portions of the island were once countryside, exactly like this. Even during the middle 1700s, construction hadn't yet advanced this far uptown. Residents who occupied Harlem cultivated the soil, kept livestock, and existed at a comfortable remove from the active port area downtown. 10 years forward, the mood in New York has transformed completely. The waterfront in 1775 was hectic and congested. Vessels were under construction, being filled with goods and undergoing maintenance daily. Laborers packed the wharves. British troops stood alongside seamen and traders. Materials transferred continuously between storage facilities and the docks. This marked the start of the American Revolution, so pressure was mounting. New York's position made it critical to both British forces and colonial residents. Whichever side held the harbor possessed a crucial tactical benefit. Multiple vessel types appear in this scene. Some are substantial cargo ships, others are compact rowing boats employed to shuttle individuals and freight between points. The structures lining the waterfront are storage buildings and trade workshops. That same year, New York served a subtle but important function in enhancing communication throughout the colonies. This structure operated as one of the first mail centers in town, and Benjamin Franklin assisted in establishing the postal pathways that transformed how news circulated. The concept of obtaining information rapidly remained relatively fresh. Written correspondence required days or weeks to reach destinations across colonial territories. Printed news sheets appeared irregularly and often arrived behind schedule. The mail service altered this situation. For the first time, correspondence could arrive more reliably. The postal operation helped distribute the perspectives that energized the revolution. Political commentary, dispatches from distant colonies, and intelligence about British movements all passed through this location. By 1776, New York had evolved beyond a modest colonial settlement. It had grown into a substantial community with active piers, lines of residences, several houses of worship, and constant activity on the waterways. The town's shoreline reveals a location prepared to develop into something considerably more expansive. Sailing ships occupy the bay. Homes cluster together closely. The coastline appears more established, and the entire district looks more structured than during previous decades. This represents the point when New York starts resembling a genuine metropolitan center. The year 1776 carries significance for additional reasons. The Declaration of Independence received signatures, and the colonies entered formal rebellion. New York's scale and geography made it a prize for opposing forces. The settlement held value, and both military powers sought possession of it. This waterfront view captures the town standing at the threshold of serious warfare. Following the Battle of Long Island, British forces took New York. They maintained occupation throughout the remaining Revolutionary War years, from 1776 through 1783. The military presence altered everyday existence for all settlement inhabitants. The scene depicts British troops moving through the roads. Command officers travel mounted. Townspeople remain on the walkways observing silently. The atmosphere appears orderly, but beneath the surface there certainly existed anxiety, strain, and doubt. Throughout the occupation period, flames consumed sections of the settlement. Resources frequently ran scarce. Residents faced pressure to declare allegiance or conceal their true beliefs. New York additionally functioned as headquarters for British military planning. It filled with troops, captives, intelligence agents, and political maneuvering. For 7 years, New York residents endured governance by an outside power. When hostilities finally concluded and British forces departed, the town had been altered both physically and psychologically. But the conclusion of foreign control also created opportunity for renewal. These scenes present a version of New York that few people typically envision, a location of snow-blanketed hamlets, peaceful farmsteads, crowded docks, and packed colonial thoroughfares. A place formed by ordinary individuals who experienced profound transformation. When we look at these images, we're not just seeing old paintings brought to life. We're witnessing the actual foundations of what would become one of the most influential cities in human history. By the time the revolutionary conflict ended, New York stood prepared to assume a different position. The city had survived occupation, endured fires, and emerged ready for reinvention. It would shortly function as the provisional capital of the United States and eventually become one of the world's most significant harbor cities. From that modest colonial settlement of fewer than 20,000 residents, it would grow into a metropolis of millions. If you enjoyed this look at colonial New York brought to life through artificial intelligence, please subscribe to the channel for more historical explorations. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What surprised you most about this era of the city? Thank you for watching, and I hope you found value in this examination of New York before it transformed into the metropolis we recognize.